Check it out. It's the Laugh to Learn podcast. Welcome to the Laugh to Learn podcast. My name is Jacob Paveo, and this right here is the show that you need to be listening to. I come to you every single Tuesday evening so that you are ready to download the episode and listen to it Wednesday at work. And I bring you all of the news you need to know about with a little bit of a lighthearted comedic spin. This week, I'll be covering Boeing and how planes are falling out of the sky. I will be covering the UK porn laws. That's going to be super exciting. We're going to talk about aliens. But first, R. Kelly. Dude, what is wrong with you? I can't even believe this. He ended up back in jail this week after everything that's been going on. He was in and out of jail once or twice in the last month, and then he had this meme-worthy interview with Gayle King after, all this stuff going on. He jumped up and screamed and cried and jumped in her face. He's a horrible actor, by the way. Worse than that guy that faked the attack, Jesse Smollett. Worse actor than him, which is crazy to say, but he's been arrested again for another underage sex charge, which is just crazy. How many of these can you get, Bill Cosby? R. Kelly. For some reason, another anonymous person posted his bail. It was like $150,000 bail. He's back out on the town, everyone. So lock up your daughters. You don't have to worry about your wife because she's probably too old for him. Now, I don't really care much about R. Kelly, nor have I looked deeply into his case, but the guy's been legally married to 3 underage girls. One was 14, one was 13 when they were dating, and 15 when they were married. And, when he needs the parents to actually, he needed them to sign a document to get married. And I'm not against, asking for a girl's father's blessing before marriage, but I certainly draw a firm line when he needs to sign a permission slip. Along with that, it was International Women's Day this past week, and I hope you all got to go out and have a good time with the women in your life and celebrate them. I actually heard that Bill Cosby was giving out special gifts to all the women working in his prison, so that's very nice of him. Conor McGregor was arrested and charged Monday of this week for smashing a fan's cell phone to the ground, knocking it out of their hands, slamming it to the ground, and stomping on it, picking it up and quickly running and jumping in his car and leaving with it, driving off. So he was charged with strong-armed robbery and criminal mischief. But if he just wanted to watch something get smashed, all he had to do was rewatch his last fight with Khabib. Now, as always, I would like to remind you to please share the podcast, share with your friends and family, all the social medias. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm available on all major podcasting platforms. We are now in our full swing every single Tuesday. You can also get it outside of podcasting platforms. You can get it on Spotify. You can get it on iTunes. You can get it on Google Play Music. You can get it pretty much anywhere. Later this week, every single episode. Right now, I'm uploading them all to YouTube. You should see the image change this week and everything. Like I promised, we are ready to go. And don't forget on iTunes to give me that 5-star rating. I think you actually have to go into a computer to do it, which kind of sucks, but it's not that much work, right? You just go to iTunes, 5 stars, write why you love me. You can even write 5 stars and write why you hate me. I'm not opposed to that. Now, as mentioned, Boeing stocks fell today faster than their jets are falling out of the sky, and that is saying something. At work this morning, I've mentioned before how boring my work is. I'm trying to wake myself up. I'm all tired in the morning. And someone asked me if I had seen the news that China had announced they were banning some of Boeing's jets. And I hadn't yet. And then in a matter of 1 hour, this escalated in a crazy way, all the way to the point that now, as of this moment, the UK, the rest of the EU, most of the EU, as well as Australia, China, and a number of smaller countries have officially grounded the Boeing 737 MAX 8 plane. Now, on top of just nations and, in the case of Australia, whole continents deciding against flying these jets or allowing them to fly, a number of airlines have decided to stop flying them and ground all of these jets as well. Now, it is widely believed that the airline crash in Ethiopia from a few days ago was caused by the exact malfunction which caused a crash in October of last year. Of course, the Ethiopia plane crash is still under investigation, but all the signs are pointing to the exact same malfunction. And we know that the October flight, which crashed, was operated by Lion Air, and it unfortunately fell into the Java Sea, killing all 189 people on board the plane. And the crazy thing about this, the crazy thing is, the pilots on board were engaged in autopilot, which is standard practice on commercial flights. You reach an altitude and autopilot comes on. Now, at some point, of course, the pilots are working. They're sitting in their seats. They're not wandering around. They're not sleeping, nothing like that. They're actively flying the plane. It's just piloting itself, but they do a whole bunch of other stuff. So at some point, the plane's software, and this is, again, the flight which crashed in October, it entered an emergency dive, just out of nowhere, started to fall out of the sky. They believe it's something to do with where the engines are positioned on the plane and how much they weigh, that the plane sort of wants to counteract itself because it thinks the nose is pointed too high when actually it's not. So it points the nose to the ground and doesn't realize it's pointed to the ground and falls out of the sky. So at this point, the pilots could do nothing to stop it. They couldn't get it out of autopilot. They couldn't get it out of the emergency dive. And ultimately, radio communications show repeated attempts of them attempting to pull the plane up to no avail, where everyone died, which is a horrible thing. You could just imagine these pilots know this plane is going down and they cannot turn off autopilot. That's like literally one of the most terrifying ways to go. And it's awful because they're flying a plane with essentially 180 passengers, probably 9 or 10 crew members. That's crazy. That's crazy that planes are falling out of the sky. So far, of course, we can't be certain of the problem that led to the crash in Ethiopia by the same jet. We know it was the exact same type of plane, the 737 MAX 8, but things certainly aren't looking up, pun intended. So if you're flying in North America, or even living here from that matter, check your flight to see if you're on a 737 MAX 8. I believe most of them fly in and out of Miami right now. And if you're on the ground, do not think twice when someone yells, "Duck." So this is a bit of a strange topic, but it's one that I'm super into, so feel free to skip ahead 10 minutes or so if you're not into it, but I want to talk a little bit about the Drake equation and the Fermi Paradox, because this is the type of stuff that I think about. So in the year 1960, Frank Drake was working for the National Radio Astronomy Organization in the U.S., the NRAO, nothing to do with guns, which was the first radio attempt to listen for alien life. We had, of course, looked for it, but never listened for it. After 4 months, running for 6 hours a day, of course, they found nothing, and Drake was tasked with sorting out exactly why no aliens had contacted us, and to come up with an equation, a rough equation at least, to measure the possibility of alien existence. And the equation that he came up with, of course, is N equals RFPNEFIFCL. So I hope you've memorized that, because there is going to be a test at the end. Of course, there's not actually going to be a test. The number of broadcasting civilizations which we could theoretically hear, is equal to the rate of suitable star formation multiplied by the fraction of stars with planets multiplied by the average number of habitable planets per star times the fraction of planets where life emerges times the fraction where intelligent life emerges, once again multiplied by the fraction with intelligent life capable of interstellar communication, multiplied by the number of years a civilization remains detectable. So this is actually incredibly brilliant. Essentially, to simplify it, what he did was Drake realized that you needed to find exactly how many planets there were out there that were not only capable of producing intelligent life, but how long that intelligent life would be capable of broadcasting itself for. Because we can be near certain that if intelligent life has ever existed, and if intelligent life would exist indefinitely, that is to say until there's no energy left in the universe, then we would essentially be surrounded by intelligent life if anything had come before us, right? If something could exist forever and has existed, at least in comparison to us, for a very, very long time, it should be everywhere. But clearly it's not. And I open with this because I'm still really excited after last week's news of SpaceX successfully launching the Dragon cruise ship and making several announcements regarding their missions to the moon. There's another big announcement tomorrow I'm looking forward to. And I believe they even said that their plan is to have a woman be the first person to walk on Mars, which is, I mean, it's cool, I guess, but just the fact that we're talking about a human being on Mars is awesome in the 2030s. And back on the moon in the next, a few times within the next 10 years. So after scouring the net, it seems, to me at least, that a number of people are hoping that in the next few years, we may also be discovering intelligent life. And I'm just here to say that I hope so too. But if we do it, it's going to have very little to do with our manned space missions. Because you have to realize that space is so big that for us to go from the Earth to the moon, even for us to go from the Earth to Alpha Centauri, which is the nearest star, it would take us about 70,000 years to get there. It's about 4 light years away. It would literally be in the expanse of space, like if you just kind of shifted over a few centimeters in your chair. Like, we're basically not moving at all to go to Mars. It's nothing. It's not even, like, you might as well just stay on Earth if you're talking about finding intelligent life that can communicate with us at long distances. Mars to Earth is nothing. So if we find intelligent life, it's going to have nothing to do with being on Mars. Nothing. Unless the intelligent life is there and hiding from us. And it's probably not. So it's essentially going to be a coincidental timing if we discover them anytime soon, because we will likely be contacted from a massive distance away. Now, I sit outside, at least when the weather gets a little bit nicer, and I look at the sky wondering why. Why we haven't seen or heard from anything credible. Now, I don't believe in flying saucers. This is something maybe I will cover in another episode. I'd like to actually sit down and talk with someone about this, because I think that'd be a cool conversation to have with someone who's a true believer. I don't want it to be so much of a debate, but just a back and forth. But two main reasons I can throw out right now for why I don't believe we've been contacted by aliens in any way. One is that the shape of a disk, which is what they always say to be, it'd be rather impractical for entering and exiting an atmosphere. It would actually be horrible. It would burn up like nothing. I know they say technology beyond what we can imagine, but it's just the shape doesn't add up to being able to travel on and off worlds with an atmosphere. And two is that everyone today has a phone. Every single person. You have a phone. Your boyfriend or girlfriend, or the person that you wish were your boyfriend or girlfriend, they have a phone. Anyone except small children have phones, and all of those phones have cameras, and I have not seen a small green man on camera yet, except ones in, like, television shows and the weird porn that the UK is banning that we'll get to later. Now, the one strange evidence I will grant is the Phoenix light phenomenon. Look up the video. I can't explain it. It's super cool. It's super real. If you've got an explanation, I'd love to hear it after you watch the video. But we aren't seeing videos like that, and that's an event that was seen by hundreds of thousands of people. So until we get something like that again, that's filmed in higher resolution, that can't be explained, I just have to stick to the facts that we're given. And now I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. And so I go to the Fermi Paradox, which tells us that there are billions of stars, many older than our sun. Many of these spawned Earth-like planets, which we have no reason to believe life couldn't flourish in these places. Life as we know it, I should specify. And this means that we can't be certain that there's an atmosphere on any of these worlds. They're just too far away. We can see the gases that come off of distant worlds, but it's very difficult on smaller planets, because the smaller it is, the harder it is to see how light reflects off it. And ultimately what we do is we use a light spectrometer to see, it's actually an electromagnetic spectrometer, to see exactly what gases exist on a planet. So if you see, for example, hydrogen is blue when light reflects off of it. So if we look at a planet and it's the correct shade of blue, because a bunch of gases make different shades of blue, if the correct shade of blue is there, then we know hydrogen is there. It's a really unique way of doing things, and we have to wait for the planet to pass in front of the star that it is within, and the light kind of changes a little bit. It's super cool. It really is. But the smaller the planet is, the harder it is to tell, and we can't really tell that there's an atmosphere. It could just be residual gas. It could even be the star itself producing those gases, or something between us and the star. So we can't be certain about any of this stuff, but we can assume that these are Earth-like planets which could have life flourishing. Now, some of these should have intelligent life that shows up, and some intelligent life, assuming it takes a similar path to us, should accomplish interstellar travel and interstellar communication, which means, given the fact that some of these societies should be much older than ourselves, I alluded to this before, there should be evidence out there of someone or something. But as it happens, in the year 2019, there is more evidence that Bill Cosby is the biggest serial rapist of all time than there is of aliens existing. And now, both of these concepts would have blown anyone's mind 50 years ago, because they would have said Bill Cosby is the sweetest character of all time, and by roughly the year 2020, sure as hell we've contacted aliens. But it's the complete opposite. And it seems every generation we feel like it's only a matter of time until we find them, until we contact these alien life forms. But maybe we won't. Maybe they know we're here, and they're waiting for us to achieve some form of technology before they reach out to us. Or maybe they think we'll be hostile towards them. Why wouldn't they think that? But I think we must also face two other concepts, which are certainly discussed, although not in public forums, because it's simply not entertaining. First, it's possible that we need to face the possibility that life outside of ours, as far as intelligent life is concerned, simply may not exist. Something I think that would be rather unlikely, because, it would be hard to believe that we would be the only thing, to which you would have to turn to religion, really. If there's no intelligent life out there, you really have to look at religion as being a strong possibility that one of these books is telling the truth. And beyond that, perhaps intelligent life is not rare universally, but in such an enormous universe, intelligent life is just so far apart from each other that it'll never come into contact. Maybe somewhere, two different origins of intelligent life, or even more, have come into contact, but maybe we're just so isolated in our, essentially the Milky Way and the Andromeda galaxy, and nothing just happened to show up where we are. And that doesn't mean that life or intelligent life is rare. It just means that the universe is so big that even something as common as intelligent life still happens so far apart. So something that you can kind of, like an analogy I could use are like ants, right? Where ants are super common all over the earth. They appear everywhere, but an army ant is never going to run into the black ant that we have in North America, right? The army ant in South America isn't going to run into it because although ants are super common, these two different types of ants are so far apart, the idea of one ant walking across the continent to find the other one is so rare. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So it's possible that we need to face the possibility that life may either not exist, which I think is rather unlikely, or that it's perhaps not rare universally, but again, it's too far apart to come into contact. Now, I wait on the edge of my seat, hoping that one day I fall off it before I die, that we discover these aliens and it knocks me right off my chair onto my ass. But before jumping to hit the share button on Facebook when it comes to spaceships in the solar system, which has been going around lately, or messages from deep space, or, they've hacked a space probe, just remember to click and check the source and question why a misspelled article on the Facebook Science Society is really the first place you'd be seeing that kind of news, because it would be coming from everywhere. Trust me, when we find it, when it is confirmed, everyone is going to be reporting on it, and it is going to be the biggest news story that has ever been spoken about or printed since probably since the Bible was printed. It would be the most earth-changing news. And I leave you with the positive note that it is always possible it happens tomorrow. So for this week's funny news, I've just got a few short stories. The first of them is just absolutely incredible. A doctor has informed his patient and his patient's family that he is soon going to die via robot camera. That's right, they wheeled in this strange little robot thing that you have to look up the picture of, and on the top where a head would be was the doctor's face, and he told the family that you're sick and you're going to die. So that means the future is finally here, Mr. Jetson. Someone has actually been told by robot that they are going to die. Now, also this week, Huawei, the cell phone company, is suing the U.S., saying that the ban on their products, specifically a ban regarding government-related contracts, which was signed into law by the president last August, limits their right to fair competition in the country. Which is funny because I thought that's exactly what the idea behind a ban on their products with government contracts was meant to do. So tune in next week for more uselessly obvious news. And that actually might be a story that we cover depending on how that case goes in the coming weeks. Finally, this one is just absolutely beautiful because I see an appeal in this man's, or rather in the state's future. A judge has changed his verdict statement to the jury after he spoke to God. Yes, a Texas judge has advised a jury who was leaving for deliberation against conviction, stating that after the trial, he received advice on the defendant's criminal status directly from the man in the clouds himself. Now, researchers have yet to discover exactly how high the judge was to hear the word of God, but we are all still trying to find out. So I would like at this point to remind everyone to please share the podcast with everyone. The numbers are slowly going up, but we need them to go up a whole lot more. So please give me all of your feedback. You can hit me up on the website, www.laughtolearnpodcast.com, all one word. You can reach me on the social medias at Jacob Paveo, at Jacob_Paveo on Instagram, at Jacob Paveo on Twitter. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. That's super important to hit that subscribe button and give me the 5-star rating on iTunes. If you miss a few episodes, you can always catch up to them. If topics aren't really your thing, you can always skip a week. No worries. Go back, catch up on episodes. Maybe you're tuning in for the first time this week. Ladies and gentlemen, please just tell your friends, tell your family that they need to check out the podcast. And any tips you could give me on what you want to hear, how you want to hear it, I'm taking everything into consideration. We are constantly changing the way that we write, the way that I read, the way I record, the way it's edited. We can change essentially anything. Even if you want me to wear sexy clothes while I record, I can do it. Maybe I am right now. Who would know? Only me and my dog. Except, yeah, he would know. His eyes are open. He's sleeping, but his eyes are open. Benny, you dead? He's not dead. He looked at me. On to our main story of the week. The UK, as of April 1st this year, will be enacting the largest portion of their sweeping new internet and digital communications legislation. And I think everyone in the United Kingdom will notice pretty quickly. Now, this may be the first time I say something which is rather controversial towards the end of this topic on this show. So strap in, folks, because this is one you'll want to hear. And if you disagree with me, please let me know, because I would love to hear your opinions on this. Now, we've all gone onto a website and had to quickly enter some fake date of birth because we're, trying to buy weed or look up the price of liquor or watch some porn. But soon, people in the UK will be permanently locked from viewing porn until the age of 18. That's right. The Digital Economy Act of 2017 is a rewritten, watered-down version of an older act, which did not end up passing into law. It got held up between elections. And there are some great things within this new legislation, such as minimum internet speeds to be maintained for all users across the UK. They're only 10 megabits per second, which is nothing, but at least everyone has to have the access to the internet, which is a fantastic rule, I think. There are rules making it easier for telecom companies to build radio and communication towers, giving people in remote areas better cell phone access, limits to monthly spending on cell phone bills, which means no more surprise, my 4-year-old spent $5,000 playing Fish Farmer. Nothing like that to happen anymore. They're going to have to agree ahead of time on a limit to your phone bill. Now, all of this is fantastic, and honestly, there's a whole lot more I could go on. You're now going to be able to borrow library books on e-readers, which you can do currently here. I actually wasn't aware that there are places in the world where you weren't allowed to do that because of rights. But for example, here, a library, you borrow a book for I think it's 15 days, and then after 15 days, you have to either renew the book or it gets returned automatically. You just don't have access to it, I like it. I do it all the time. So tons of good things are being added to the country's laws, but there are a lot that I disagree with. And now I'm going to focus, however, on one of the most extreme provisions that I vehemently disagree with, as you will come to note, which is that you will now need to upload a photo of your passport directly to the government, or buy a card, a prepaid card from a store. It's going to cost, by the way, even if you upload your passport, £5.99 pounds. I don't know how to say that, but £5.99, £5.99 or something like that. I forget how they say it. Doesn't matter. From a store where your ID is checked. So you pay $5.99 and either send the government your passport to prove it's you, or you have to bring your it has to be a passport or a government-issued ID into a store where your ID is checked. So again, online, passport, in-store, government ID or passport, where you can buy a porn access card. And there's a more expensive one, which allows you to access porn on all your devices at your IP address. Another one for just your specific device. Therefore, the UK will be strictly enforcing the 18-plus legislation rule for watching porn or other, quote, adult content, end quote. Further to this, all internet service providers or ISPs will be required to ban adult content until the customer contacts them directly to unlock the adult content by opting out of the new service. So not only do you have to pay the government, show the government your ID, you now have to contact your ISP to tell them, yo, I need to jerk off tonight. Now, of course, you don't have to do that to them every night. You just tell them once, they opt you out permanently, but that's extreme. Now, on a personal note, they decided to keep the porn thing in, but remove a rule from the legislation which would ban the purchase of excess tickets to an event with the intention to resell them. So that means we've all been screwed over trying to go to a concert or something by ticketing bots. I've talked adamantly about it on all my radio show, my old podcasts. I hate it. I hate the fact that our governments allow someone to profit off of artists. I think it's wrong. It disgusts me that we allow it to go on. That is not capitalism. It's simply not capitalism. It's just taking advantage of someone else's art. They set the prices to their concert, not you. So these lawmakers can go to hell. Back to porn. This new rule sets, in my opinion, a scary precedent in the country. Currently, at least here in Canada, the government can't block my access to any website. However, I learned in doing research for this that in the UK, they already have been banning content which is deemed inappropriate by a governing body. This means the government for several years now has been pulling a China and hiding web pages from individuals to quote unquote protect them. Hell no. Not okay, folks. Not okay. It's super famous. Like, it's a famous story that in China you cannot Google what happened in I think it's Tiananmen Square, the famous image of a man lying in front of a tank and the tank runs him over, protesting the Chinese government. You can't Google that in China. And I remember in elementary school learning about that. I was like in grade 8 and I was like, what? The government is hiding things from people like that so you can't find out they screwed up in the past? Well, now in the UK, they're doing similar things. They're hiding web pages that to protect you. They're saying, no, we're protecting you by not allowing it. Now, a lot of people say, well, this is a good thing. You can't see bad stuff. But you may have heard some of these podcasts. I was listening to Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, doing his recent podcast tour the last 4 or 5 weeks. You may have heard the famous podcasts he was on was Rogan, obviously, JRE, he was on just last week. He did Sam Harris a few weeks back, Dave Rubin. And I think I listened to 9 or 10 different podcasts over like 14 hours of Jack Dorsey, because Jack Dorsey, for those of you who don't know, he's the CEO of Twitter, and he mentions in, I don't remember which podcast it was, he may have even said it on more than one podcast, but he mentions a story where a famous UK YouTuber who has nearly a quarter, he's an American YouTuber, but nearly a quarter of his followers are based in the UK, and he's had some of his content blocked in the UK because he talks about open support for fascism, which in the UK they deem as being, they need to protect you, so they don't want you to have to hear someone talk about fascism. But all of his other videos are still online, and nearly a quarter of his subscribers live in the UK. They fund him. They subscribe to him on Patreon, but they can't see anywhere, even on Twitter, which is why Jack Dorsey wasn't upset, but he was just talking very openly about how this guy is a fascist. And no one in the UK knows, and a quarter of his followers are English. He has over 1 million subscribers on YouTube in the UK. And nearly none of them, and in fact, none of them, unless they're using software to bounce their IP outside of the UK, none of them can see or read articles about his pro-fascist content. They have no idea. To them, he's just a comedian because that's his primary thing. He's a comic. But he's a fascist, and they wouldn't know. If you were to meet someone in the street who isn't using a VPN to bounce their IP to make it look like they're not in the UK but they're in the US, those people would be able to, of course, access his pro-fascism videos, but most people aren't using VPNs yet. One day that will be a thing, I'm almost certain, but right now they're not. So if you stop someone on the street and you're like, yo, are you a fan of this YouTuber? And they were like, yeah, man, he's funny as hell. They would have no idea that he's literally supporting openly fascism and supporting 1930s Nazi politics because the UK banned it. It's so messed up. Imagine if your favorite celebrity, who you repost on Twitter all the time, you like their Instagram posts, you creep them on Facebook, they actually had a few hundred hours of video that were pro-Hitler videos. And your government decided it's better for you to just not know that bad people exist. So they hid that from you. And you've been supporting this person for years, giving them money, watching their videos, giving them ad revenue, telling your friends about how funny this person is, sharing the funny videos on Facebook. You'd have no idea, and your government made you look like a fool. There's literally a Black Mirror episode where a mother has software implanted into her daughter's head to protect her from seeing things that she thinks are inappropriate. Not going to spoil it, but needless to say, it doesn't end well. This doesn't end well. It is a damn slippery slope, friends. And it's becoming a stricter law in just a few weeks. Now, getting back to porn. I think the legal age to view porn should be significantly lower than the legal age of consent. In Canada right now, anyone over the age of 16 can have sex with absolutely anyone else as long as they aren't a judge, lawyer, teacher, doctor, or a, quote, person holding a position of power over their proposed sexual partner, end quote. Which means essentially 16 is the age of consent. And individuals at 12 can have sex with anyone up to 5 years older than themselves. And it is not rape. It's completely allowed, of course, as long as it's consensual. So let's stop kidding ourselves because kids bang and they do it all the time. And we need to get over it. We need to be adults about this and get over it and start teaching them about how to be safe rather than worrying about them seeing two consenting adults do it online for $100. The argument that it is a negative effect specifically on men is one that I understand, but guess what? Every single person, male or female, saw porn when they were young kids. Young people specifically, my generation. We're the internet generation. It happens literally everyone. But we are not the wife-beating generation. We're not the murdering generation. It's rather the opposite. We're single, we're not getting married, and we're practicing safe sex and not having kids, statistically speaking. By the time you're 14 or 15, you've learned that porn is not how it really works. And it's just like watching a death in a movie, or as I've covered before, a death in a video game. There's no lasting impact and no negative component to the simple act of watching porn. Just like everything else, it of course can be addicting. But just like everything else, should we ban it from everyone? Because some young boys, let's be honest, most would be male, won't be able to stop touching themselves? Really? Not to mention creating a government archive of grown adults who want to do the same thing. What about the women who are ashamed of the stigma of girls watching porn? So they don't want to upload their passport. They don't want to go show their ID at the store. So they just stop. They stop watching porn altogether. That could be unhealthy and lead to promiscuity. And the same, of course, would be the same for shy men who were afraid to go through the process or afraid to give their name to the government to be set on this list. This is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. It's just sex. Get over it. I feel like this is turning into a rant because this is one of the most ridiculous laws I've seen and read in a while, and I have to just stop. So I'm going to close with this. I think the age to view porn should either be 14 or 16 years old. There should be no fines associated with breaking that rule, and people just, like I said, they need to get over it. It's just sex. There are more young people committing suicide than ever before. There are more dying of drug overdoses than ever before. And we're spending time and money, at least in the UK, time and money in government to ban porn? As one of my favorite actresses says in every one of her films, fuck me. Yeah, that last one was a joke. It was good. I think that was funny as hell. That was really funny, I think. For my rant today, it's going to be another shorter one. And it's just, I'm seeing some trends, especially in American politics right now, that are very, very concerning to me, and I don't like it. I don't like seeing it. And it's the rise of anti-Semitism now, specifically on the left wing. And this is something that the more you look at it, the more it's there. And we have to face the fact that it's there. And I'm going to straight up call out the junior congresswoman, I should say, Ilhan Omar, because she is promoting anti-Semitism. She is spewing it out her mouth 9 times out of 10 when she opens it. You read through her statements, and it makes me want to puke. It's disgusting. It's vile. And she's only defended because she's a Muslim woman. Straight up. I'm going to say that. So in 2012, she tweeted that Israel has hypnotized the world. May Allah awaken the people and help them see the evil doings of Israel. Again, that's in 2012 in a tweet that is still not deleted and can be found today. Now, I'm fine with saying she was, in this time, still a teenager, or maybe she was roughly 20 years old, 19 or 20, and, she was just not in the public eye. I'm actually willing to say, okay, let's move on. However, it hasn't stopped. In mid-February, she created another stir when she tweeted that support for Israel in the U.S. Congress was all about the Benjamins, which, of course, is a suggestion that the pro-Israel lobby, the AIPAC, has been buying off American politicians. Now, she quickly received a whole lot of kickback against that, and she apologized right away and deleted the tweet. However, she came back with this statement, and I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to talk about it. And I am completely down to defend my position on her, so here we go. She said, quote, "What I'm fearful of, because Rashida Tlaib and I are Muslim," side note, Rashida Tlaib is the other junior congresswoman. The two of them were the first Muslim immigrant congresswomen to be elected to U.S. Congress this past year. To continue, she said that a lot of our Jewish colleagues, a lot of our constituents, a lot of our allies go to thinking that everything we say about Israel to be anti-Semitic because we are Muslim. And so to me, it's something that becomes designated to end the debate because you get in this space of, yes, I know what intolerance looks like, and I'm sensitive when someone says, quote, "The words you used, Ilyan, are resemblance of intolerance," end quote. And I'm cautious of that, and I feel pained by that. But it's almost as if every single time we say something, regardless of what it is, we say that is supposed to be about foreign policy or engagement or advocacy about ending oppression or the freeing of every human life and wanting dignity. We get to be labeled something, and that ends the discussion. Because we end up defending that, and nobody ever gets to have the broader debate of what is happening with Palestine. So for me, I want to talk about the political influence in this country that says it is okay for people to push for allegiance to a foreign country. And I want to ask, why is it okay for me to talk about the influence of the NRA, of the fossil fuel industry, or Big Pharma, and not talk about a powerful lobby? End quote. Of course, the powerful lobby that she is discussing once again is the AIPAC, which is the pro-Israel lobby in the United States, who of course lobby for a lobby, for those who don't know, is an organization that calls up Congress people and spends money to get laws passed in a particular way, and there are hundreds of lobbies. So Miss Omar, okay. So why is it, essentially, I'm trying to break down her question here. So she's asking why it is that we can talk about the NRA, fossil fuels, Big Pharma, and not the AIPAC. Now, we can talk about AIPAC. We can talk about their influence. We can talk about how we disagree with some of their policies. I am the type of person who everything I know about the Israel-Palestine conflict, which is a lot, but I certainly wouldn't know as much, I hope I wouldn't know as much as a congressperson, nor as someone from that part of the world, which I'm not. I'm not Jewish, I'm not Muslim, I'm not Palestinian, I'm not Israeli. I have we did our genealogy, my mom at least did hers, my uncle on my dad's side's done his. There is no Jewish blood within me. There is very little North African blood within me. So I don't have any stake in this game, and I look at it from a third-party perspective where all that I want is peace. That's all I can ask for. I think a two-state solution is what it has to be, and that's a bigger topic. But for the purpose of this rant, the problem that I have with Ilhan Omar is that every single time she's on the floor of Congress and making news, it's because she's saying that we should not be supporting Israel. We, as in the West, should not be supporting Israel. Now, I have one thing to say about that. Israel is the only democracy in that part of the world. If anything, they're the only... I don't give a shit about religion. I'm an atheist. I don't care if they're Jewish. I don't care if they're Muslim. One country in that section of the world is democratic. That is the country we should support. That is the country she should support. She should say, she should be completely honest and say, look, she's upset and making herself a victim here, saying, you're mad at me because I'm a woman and I'm a Muslim, and that's what you say, and it's actually anti-Islamic. I'm not being an anti-Semite. You're being an Islamophobe. No. You are a U.S. Congresswoman. Get over yourself. Pull up your pants and pull up your skirt, whatever the hell you want, and make proper arguments, because you're victimizing yourself, and you are absolutely not a victim. You make $130,000 US a year as a base salary. She also sits on the Foreign Policy Committee, which means I believe it's an extra $12,300 US she gets. She needs to get over herself and start talking about the policies with Israel that you disagree with, not the fact that we shouldn't support them. Just to say we should not support Israel is inherently anti-Semitic if that's all you say. Tell me why. What is it you don't like about them? They are a right-wing government. Sure, I get that. They voted for him. The Palestinians did not vote for their leaders. Most areas of that part of the world did not vote for their leaders. Actually, all touching Israel did not vote for their leaders. They are not democratic nations. We need to support democratic nations. That doesn't mean that anyone who is not democratic we should turn our backs on and start war with. However, it means that we should be saying to the Palestinians, maybe we should support them in certain aspects. I don't disagree with that. In fact, I think we should. But we should always be saying to them, hey, look, the Israelis actually have elections. Maybe Palestine, you should hold an election. A real election. A proper election. Allow your people to vote on your government. Why not? What are you afraid of? That's what we should be saying. Like I said, that's a different topic that we should have entirely. My problem with her is that she needs to come forward with a proper political analysis of why she is against Israel. Tell me why. I understand why you mentioned specifically the NRA. You're against the NRA because you are anti-gun. She is. She's very open about that. That's why you talk against the NRA. The fossil fuel industry, you believe in the New Green Deal. That is adamantly against the fossil fuel industry. That's why you talk against them. Big Pharma, you talked openly about dropping pharmaceutical prices. I understand that. That's a reason why you talk against Big Pharma. The reason you're against AIPAC is because you don't think we should support Israel. That's anti-Semitic. Why shouldn't we support Israel? Because you don't want to? Tell me why. She has never once acknowledged why. I've looked for her tweets. I've looked for it all. All she says is that we need to bring peace to Palestine. They should own the property, essentially, is what she's getting at. That she said it before. She hasn't said it as a congresswoman, but that's what she believes, which is fine. Believe that, but as a congressperson, you can't say that. You can't. And if you do, you're going to be called an anti-Semite because that's what you are. You can't come to the table with that argument. And with that, I need to calm down and go to bed. So, thank you for listening. Thank you for sticking through it to the end. Let me know all of your comments, your hate, your love. Send them to me on the website, the contact page at www.laughtolearnpodcast.com. Come back every single week. Share it with your friends. Listen to the old episodes. Tell your friends about your favorite episode. That you don't have to send them to this one. Send them to your favorite one, because that's the cool thing to do. As always, my name is Jacob Paveo. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, I will see you next Tuesday. Oh, and wait, it's coming to YouTube later this week, so check it out on YouTube. Bye.